I started stepping back, and that's when the bullet fired. My heart stopped, and I waited to meet my fate. My child. My unborn child who wouldn't be able to see the world. Who wouldn't be able to see their mom or their dad. But the pain never came. Maybe that's why I'm floating. It's already done. My ears, ringing, but then I felt it. A rhythm. A rhythm behind my back. A protective arm around me and the deafening sounds of bullets exchanging. And a warm hand cupping my hand and shaking me softly.
Krasotka.
His deep voice pulled me out of that hollowness, and I blinked. His blurry face became clearer.
You all right?
He asked, and I gulped. I was not dead. I was fine in his arms with my child. My hand instinctively covered my stomach. I don't know, but my baby seems fine. I'm fine. I nodded, and he pecked my forehead.
Stay here. I will be back.
He went to the battlefield. He saved me and put me in a safe spot, but he was gone. Too soon. But then it was all quiet all too soon as well. My heart started banging in my chest. One of the opposition had been taken down, and I prayed quietly, "It's not him. It's not him." I chanted, but being restless, I stood up from my crouching position and looked around. Many bodies lay around. Crimson covering the ground, and my hands started shaking. Suddenly, the bullets started firing again, and when I turned around, Elijah had a knife barely an inch away from me. If it weren't for a strong hand stopping him, I would have been bleeding right now. Jungkook saved me and turned his hand and pushed that same dagger in that same hand in his heart. He whimpered and fell on the ground near my feet. I backed off, gasping.
Mia.
He called me, and I looked at him with wide eyes. He moved to me, but a man hit his head with a rod from behind. He turned around and shot him at once. Jungkook touched his head, and I saw blood pouring out of the back of his head. Jungkook! I called him, and he fell on his knees. I moved to him, and he was on the ground. He passed out, and I kept calling him. I keep pressuring his wound. The guards came. Kostya came and took him to the hospital. Now I was waiting outside the door. I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't stand, and after an hour and a half, the doctor came out. "Doctor, my husband?" I asked, frantically.
He should be fine. He just needed stitches. But he bled a lot. We will keep him under observation until he wakes up.
He told me, and I took a shaky breath in and out. "Can I see him?" I asked, and he looked around, looking at a bunch of the guards around me.
Just you.
He told me, and I nodded. That night was no more than hell. I waited for him to wake up. I laid on the couch and dozed off. I woke up startling. He was taking his IV lines off. Hey! I stopped his hand. He glared at me. "Jungkook, you can't." I told him, and he pushed my hand away. "I told you no." I raised my voice at him, and he stared at me as if he would strangle me with his bare hands. He wrapped his hand around my throat and towered me.
Who do you think you are talking to, woman?
He snarled on my face. I jerked his hand away and pushed him on the bed to sit. Though that's another story that he did even budge. "My husband," I told him sarcastically. "Is he gone mad or something?" "Come on, sit down. I'll call the doctor." I asked him, and he stared at me murderously. "Please." I pleaded, and he obliged stiffly. The doctor checked him, and he kept asking weird questions. He asked about Elijah. Why would he? The doctor asked him what year it was, and he answered 2020. My head was a mush of everything. He discussed with me and dropped the bomb on me that my husband had lost his memory. He lost all our memories. He forgot me. He was grumpy about why he was being kept here and why I was here, and asked why I called him my husband.
Mr. John, how are you feeling?
The doctor asked.
Well enough to leave this hellhole.
He grumbled. The doctor nodded.
Yes, it is.
He grumbled.
It's not. It's 2024. Due to your head injury, you have lost the memory of the past 4 years. It could be temporary, but don't strain yourself. Head is a tricky organ.
The doctor ended.
Is there any other question you want to ask me?
He asked since JK remains quiet. Jungkook grabbed his collar and jerked him forward.
Who paid you to say that, huh?
He shouted. I went to them and tried to get Jungkook to free the poor doctor. Stop it. I told him and he glared at me.
So it's you, huh?
He left the doctor and pushed the IV lines off his body and pushed me to the nearest wall with his hand on my throat.
Who paid you?
He asked in a growl and whimpered as his hand squeezed my throat. I don't know what changed, but he pulled back as instantly as a tear started leaking from the corner of my eyes. I gasped. I looked at him and he stared at me wildly. I took my confident steps towards him. I am your fucking wife, I shouted at him. Hell if anyone can pay me to love you. I ended in a shout. Now sit back so that we can go home. I told him sternly and he grinned jaw. I covered my face and sighed. I cupped his jaw and asked him softly. Please, love. I know it's shocking, but I am your wife. Please calm down and there is no Elijah. He was a traitor. He was involved with the Morettis, Italians. You killed him yourself. Should I ask Kostya to arrange the discharge so that we can go home? I asked him, and he was staring at me wildly. He pushed my hand away, and I tripped back and almost fell.
Kostya, get the discharge in next 10 minutes.
He ordered him.
Yes, boss.
He answered and went outside. The doctors and the security went out, leaving us alone here. The huge room feels small right now. He stared at me hard, and I am completely comfortable with it, but his murderous spree is keeping me on edge. We came home. He tried to keep me away, and I tried to, but I can't help it. He saw everything, and then he believed it was a memory loss. In his room, I made him comfortable. He showered and came out in the towel. I went to the closet and brought his free boxers. I gave them to him, and I went to my side of the bed. I took out my supplement and gulped it with water. When I looked back at him, he was staring at me. What? I asked, because he was still in the towel. He raised his eyebrow and I understood. Oh. I didn't know what to say. He didn't want to change in front of me. Right. I bit my lip. You can go in the closet or back to the bathroom, if you are not comfortable. I told him and I was red tomato. I silently lagged and he gave me his murderous look. I couldn't hold back and started laughing. I'm sorry. I told him, but I was still laughing. I never thought this day would come. He is so shameless most of the time. He grunted and went into the closet. He came back wearing his boxers. He sat on the bed. Will you be comfortable with me by your side? I asked him.
What do you mean?
He asked. Like with you on the bed. I told him and he kept quiet. Right. I'll be next door. If you need me, just call me. Or you can come through that door. I will keep it open from my side. I pointed at the attached door. I looked around my room for the last time and moved to the door after a sigh.
Wait,
I halted in my steps.
what do I call you?
He asked me. Well, you call me Krasotka, love, but mostly Mia. And when you are angry, you call me Jeon YN. He stared at her. Mia, call me Mia. I like it when you call me that. I told him and smiled. Night, love. I spoke and went to my room. With a heavy sigh, I closed the door of my room next to him and slid down as my knees gave out. First sob left my lips after the whole day of anguish. Then another. I tried to keep quiet, but couldn't. I found him again, but lost him again. He is here, but he is not. Why? I cried.
That was hella day. All things don't make any sense, and top of the list is that wife. How did I get married? The photos of us are hanging on the wall, but there is my picture. Who took that picture? My style is different here. And don't ask me about the closet. Black, gray, and white. That's how I like it. But now it's a rainbow on one side, and my darkness on the other side. A few distorted images started mending in my head, and it started banging. They were quick and gone, and then there was another. My blood boiled, and I swiped a hand over the table next to me. My head is banging. I stood up and sent all the things on the table flying on the floor. The chaos is too much. But then a soft figure smashed into mine. The scent was threatening the chaos to go away. I picked her up and hid my face in her neck. She was whispering things in my ear, and I didn't hear a word. Her incense was it. I sat back on the bed, and she was caressing my hair on my nape.
It's all right. I'm right here.
She whispered, and when I looked at her, she was calm, but tears were spilling from her eyes. My breathing was wild. I was furious at everything I was feeling, and on top of the power that this woman held over me. Back at the hospital, she ordered me. Fuck, she shouted at me. And now her scent is enough to calm my beast. Why are you crying? I asked in a hoarse voice.
I don't know. Are you feeling all right?
She asked me softly. I nodded. She cupped my cheek, and her hand was ice cold.
Please don't hurt yourself. It hurts me.
She told me, and I didn't know how to reciprocate. But her hands were cold. I held her wrist, but her pulse was different. You are...
Pregnant. 9 weeks and 2 days today. I can't wait to hold a mini you.
She exclaimed while sitting on my lap as if it was just another random thing for her. I don't do that. Girls don't get to sit on my lap. I use them and discard. Your BP is going low, I told, and she smiled.
Such a doctor's soul.
She scrunched her nose.
Oh,
She covered her mouth. What? She runs to the bathroom. I can hear her outside. I contemplated going to her, but it was 15 minutes now. I went to see her, and she was lying unconscious by the sink while the water ran from the tap. I turned the tap off. I knew it. Low BP. I took her to the bed. Her lips were turning pale. I brought a drink from downstairs. I woke her up by taping cold water on her face. I gave her the juice. When did you last eat? I asked when she finished her juice. She bit her lip and looked at me with those big eyes. I don't have all night, woman, I told her, annoyed.
Yesterday morning. Breakfast.
She spoke meekly, and I pressed my lips. What? Are you crazy? You're with a child, I scolded her.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
She tried to cover up. What do you mean by forgot? I raised my voice, and she bit her lip, looking down in her lap, crying. I took a deep breath in and out. Look, this is not it, I told her, and she sniffed. Look at me. She kept crying silently. Mia. I called her. She looked at me and jumped in my arms, hugging me. She cried in my neck.
I'm sorry, but don't treat me like a patient. I'm your wife.
She spoke in a broken voice. She stayed there in my arms. She slept in my arms, and I was dumbfounded as to what to do with this woman. I lay her on the bed and lay on the other side. I'm tired, and I need sleep. My life has turned into a 360-degree angle, and I don't know what to do about it. Mostly, what to do about her.
I woke up feeling a heaviness, and I rushed to the bathroom. I threw up, and my stomach contracted painfully. I whimpered. I flushed and somehow got to the sink. I brushed and washed my face. I need a shower. I pulled off my shirt and trouser and hopped in the shower. I turned it on the scalding hot. On days like that, I like it hot. My stomach is still contracting. I quickly finished the shower and wrapped the towel around me. I need to eat. I dried my hair with a towel. After I finished, I looked at myself in the mirror. My collarbones are visible as if I'm malnourished. If my Jungkook had seen it, he would have given me an earful. An urge to cry hit me along with the cramp in my stomach. I went out and looked for my clothes in the closet. When I didn't like anything in my closet, I went to his side. I grabbed a black t-shirt from his side and a body shorts from my side and put it on, though I didn't realize he was watching me all the time. He was dressed and stood there while I dressed. How long have you been standing there? I asked.
Long enough to witness a theft.
He told me, and I stared at him with my jaw hanging. I just rolled my eyes. Yours are comfortable, I told him.
And what about this rainbow?
He asked, pointing at my color-coordinated side. That's not a rainbow. It is color-coordinated, and they are my dresses, I told him.
And yet you stole mine.
He gave me a stink eye. Don't be a baby. It's not like I have worn your shirt for the first time. In fact, you love it on me. Especially when you… I halted abruptly. When you wear me out and dress me because I'm too tired to do it on my own. I didn't say that, and he was frowning at me.
When I what?
He asked. Nothing, I answered while gulping. I tried to walk past him and he held my arm.
I what?
He asked again. I bit my lip. His eyes zeroed on the assaulted lip. You used to put them on me when you… wear me out. I told him and tried to be as discreet as possible.
Wear you out?
He asked in a frown, and that when it clicked to him. Understandment covering his face and his fingers on my arm loosened. I'm starving, I told him and moved forward.
Yeah, you look like it.
He mocked. Only if you knew. I spoke and he again looked at me frowning. Finally, I had breakfast. Ogla fussed over me for the food. I felt a little weak. He tried to go to work, but I pushed him back to his room. I gave him his meds and he slept. He is very distant. These past few days, I have been sleeping on the couch and I told him it's nostalgic, and when I used to sleep on the couch in the past, he would force me on the bed. My days are getting sadder. I want him. The other day, his perfume made me so needy. He is in the garden with Bam. I went there and Bam came to me, wiggling his tail. When I crouched, he peppered me with licks. Bam, I squealed.
She has got to be kidding me. My pet? Bam, I called him. He's going to hurt her and the baby. Sit. I ordered him, and he obliged. He sat sticking out his tongue. I got up from my chair and she was still laughing. I gave her my hand. She looked at my hand and then me. A full bloom smile spread over just the offer of my hand. A flashback of many of the similar smiles ran through my head. But they were gone as soon as they appeared. She took my hand and her hand was warm and soft, and somewhere in my head an instinct arose to place her soft hand on my cheek and feel it. I ignored it. I made her sit on the chair and sat far from her on the bench. Don't do that. That's dangerous, I told her coldly. And when I didn't hear anything from her, I looked over at her who was smiling at me. What? I asked.
Nothing,
She answered, shaking her head and shrugging. What is it? I asked again, getting irritated. From my feelings and thoughts and her, especially her.
You just can't change. Memory intact or not. Jealousy from your pet dog is still intact.
She told me and started laughing. No, I'm not jealous. That was dangerous, I insisted. Though I don't know who I was trying to compel, me or her.
Yeah?
She said mockingly. After that, we stayed silent mostly. Not her, though. She was playing with Bam, throwing the ball for him, and he brings it back and forth. What if I never get my memory back? I asked her. The question popped in my head out of nowhere.
Then what?
She asked back. I lost every single memory about you. I told her the fact that she is ignoring. She stayed quiet for a moment.
That was the best time for me because I fell in love with you at that time. We created some beautiful memories. They always stay with me in my core. But if you don't remember me, then I will make you fall in love with me, but this time the story will be the other way around. Last time you chased me and forced me to fall for your charm. This time I will torment you until you fall in love with me. Because that heart is mine. It beats for me.
She spoke with passion, love, and a hint of sadness. You are crazy, I told her, too stunned to say anything else.
You brought the crazy in me, and you forced me to embrace the crazy, so deal with it.
She tells me with those blazing eyes, and I couldn't help but stare at her. She told me breathily, and I was taken aback. Why? She stares at me in my eyes. She was staring as if she was trying to reach my soul, and I felt something stir in me.
Or I will fuck you right here.
She said bluntly. The thought is merely pathetic. Scoffed. You? Fuck me, I asked with a tiny smirk playing on my lips.
Oh, you lose it when I take the charge.
She exclaimed with that haughtiness. My cheeks heated a bit. Are you blushing? She asked in a shocked tone.
My husband never blushes. In fact, it's the other way around. Don't hold back whatever it is, but make sure that I'm sated after you say those bothersome, filthy words.
She said in a sultry voice and started laughing.
I'm sorry. You're so cute.
She exclaimed in between her fit of laughter. I grinned my jaw. How much that woman knows of me. Exactly how much I gave her?
BTW in our relationship, I'm always bottom, and if I am top, you are the one in charge.
She told me as if I'm the least bit interested. She got up and kneeled in front of me. I stared at her, but the sight of her kneeling again triggered another image in my head. She took my hand in her hand and placed it on her throat.
Just like that. You are always in charge.
I stared at her for a beat. My body started heating and the images of holding that throat until a streak of blissful sounds rang in my ears. Her sweet begging for more and to stop. On my desk, on my chair, on the floor, in the kitchen, in the bed, in the bathroom, in the living room, everywhere, and the very place I'm sitting on. The bench. The very same bench has an image of her with my hand on her throat and losing herself. The tiny image made in a collage disappeared as fast as it appeared. I pulled my hand back with a jerk. I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand her, and most importantly, the longing look in her eyes. She is begging me for something. She hasn't uttered a single word, but she is asking for it, for me. And my body reacted to her. I was strained painfully seeing her on her knees practically begging for me. But I don't trust her. She lives in my house, in my room. I won't give her any more leverage than she already had. She knew me. How much? I fiacked her. How much? She calls me her husband. How? But the ring she wears is my mum's. How did she get that ring? I lifted her hand and examined the ring. How did you get that? I asked her angrily. She blinked.
You gave it to me.
She stuttered. Why did she stutter? Is she lying? Why are you wearing it? I asked her, raising my voice.
That's my wedding ring. You gave this to me.
She again stuttered. Give it back. I told her, and she hid her hand behind her back.
No, that's mine. I won't take off my wedding ring.
She told me, backing off on her knees. I said, give it to me. I told her again.
No, please, I can't, Jungkook. Please don't make me do it.
She cried. I got up and she fell back on her butt. I'm not always nice. I growled at her and forced her hand out in front of me.
Jungkook, please don't. I beg you, no.
She begged. I slid off the ring, but it was stuck, and I used some force. She whimpered at it, and Bam started growling. He was ready to attack. Sit. He didn't oblige and kept growling and barking at me. She again whimpered when I forced it out. Her finger was red.
Please.
She begged meekly, and finally it was off of her finger. She was crying as if I pointed my gun at her. I grinned my jaw and left her there on the ground. No one deserves my mother's ring. No one. My head started hurting, and I went into my safe underground and entered after, scanning my eyes and hand on it. I encased it in its case in the center. There was more jewelry than I remembered.